That's my big honor to introduce my dear friend, my new colleague, actually, Professor Simon Collinson. He now is our Chingshan Chair Professor at our Chingshan Institute for Advanced Business Studies. Professor Simon Collinson is the leading professor and distinguished academic researcher in innovation, international businesses in this area. His contribution is huge, especially his textbook is one of the most popular textbook for the international business students. Sure.
Well, thank you very much for welcoming me here, Professor Wu. We're going to have a discussion today, and I'm really looking forward to it, about the rise of China, but also innovation in China and how it's different to other countries. And I'll try and bring my external perspective about other innovation countries. And you're the expert about China itself, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
As we have the co-interests in the innovations, and so many people see China as rising as an economic miracle. But what's behind the miracle? So as an expert in this area, what's your view on this?
Well, I'm learning. I'm not an expert yet, but I've spent a lot of time looking at China and researching China from an external point of view, and the growth is incredible. It's a miracle, and in a sense, there are three components that are really interesting. One is the scale. This is 1.4 billion people, and economic growth has affected all of them. So the scale is immense. The second is the scope, the breadth of the economy. If you compare it to other economies in terms of its growth, the range of industries that have accelerated and grown over the last 20, 25 years is phenomenal. And then lastly, the speed of this growth, the rate of this growth, given the size of the country, is exceptional. So I did my PhD in Kenya, and in 1977, when I lived in Nairobi, the GDP per capita, this is a measure of the production per person, but also the income per person in these different countries. Than China. In Kenya, it was slightly higher than China in 1977. Now, in 2023, China's GDP per head, per capita, per person was 7 times more, 7 times more than Kenyans. So every Chinese has an income 7 times more on average than the Kenyans. So the point of this is economics, it's growth, it's increased productivity, but it's affected everybody in this country in terms of health, welfare, moving out of poverty, getting jobs, getting houses, getting televisions, getting Alipay, getting cars. But it's moved people out of poverty, and in a way that, again, has not happened in Kenya, because Kenya is a 7th in terms of its productivity, its production, but also its income per head. So this is tremendous. And for a country this size, that rate of change is incredible. And underlying it, as we know, is innovation. So I'm an outsider, I'm an external, non-Chinese person enjoying being in China. But from your perspective, you've studied China for so much longer from the inside. What is so special about this growth rate, and what underpins the phenomenal growth rate of the Chinese economy?
Yes, you see, in the year, as you mentioned, 1977, that's the year I was enrolled in the university. After the Cultural Revolution time, that's the first row of the people getting to the university, took the exam. But we see that the rising of China, not just for the skills also, for our studies, we see at the very beginning, China opened the door and reformed the economic system from the planning system to go to the market system. So the key issue for this at the first stage, try to catch up with the frontiers, with the leading countries, leading companies. So with the catch up, when we see the innovations going on, so many people just see China just like a copycat. Because you catch up, learn from everything already said. But anyway, in our studies, we find that those Chinese companies, they are doing some innovations, especially in the process innovation. So with the process innovation, they learn not just to make the same things, but they making innovations to avail the domestic resources, domestic human capitals to make some improvement in the process.
Right.
So that's the good way to assimilating the technologies.
Right.
So later on, when those Chinese companies assimilated technology, they have the capabilities to make some things to cope with the local needs. Yeah, but the local needs in China may be different from those demands in outside China.
Right.
Yeah, so that's different. So when they try to adapting those products to Chinese market demands, they made some product innovations. Yeah, such as in the United States, they have the big fridge. But in China, at that time, we needed a small fridge. Yeah, so such as Haier or some leading companies now. And they making the smaller fridge, adapting to the local demands.
Which is innovation.
Yeah, so with this, they have the innovation. But I call those innovations the secondary innovation. Yes, because they have no original new things for the society. We just learn from those leaders, but we're adapting to our local market. So that's the first stage. But later on, we could say that the innovative rising of those leading companies. So especially we see the so-called beyond the catch-up, not just the catch-up in China, we could say that. So we see when those companies started from the secondary innovation, such as Huawei, now is a global leader. Yeah, but at the very beginning, they just try to assimilate the existing technologies. Yeah. But later on, they got the chance to upgrade, go through the cycles. As I mentioned, the cycle is a very important thing. We see, such as for the telecommunication systems, 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. That's the technological cycle. So how they go through it, so upgrade it. So that's the key issues. Yeah. So with this, we see the R&D investment and R&D management, such as in the companies in Huawei and ITD. They have adopted the leading, not just the physical technologies, but they learn from those managerial technologies. Yeah, so make their systems even more efficient. So that's the way when we're talking about the innovative rising of China, they upgrade, they cross the cycle, go through the cycles, upgrade. So that's the key for China's miracle. We could see that. Yeah. So at the very beginning of the after the Cultural Revolution, when I got to the university, the new university students, that's just about 200,000 per country. Yeah, but now is about 11 million. Wow. So that's the huge rising of not just the resources, but the human resources upgrading. Human resources. Yeah, that's also very, very important elements for the innovative rising. So, Professor Collinson, you are the one outside China. You have even broader view for the innovative rising. So people outside China see China as a miracle, but could this be shared by others, or is there any other views on the rising? Yeah.
Well, I think it is a bit of a miracle. It's unprecedented for the reasons we've talked about, the growth rate and the speed and the innovation learning. But different countries have different varieties of capitalism.
Yeah.
So different cultures, different regulations, different government, different business practices, and the firms evolve with different strengths and weaknesses. So everywhere can learn from everywhere else.
Yeah.
I think increasingly China is becoming a leader, and other firms and other countries are learning from China as an exemplar of some types of successful innovation. But there are two sort of dimensions to this which I think are interesting. One is countries and economies, particularly small ones, have to specialize. So if we think about Switzerland, now Switzerland is actually this year top of the innovation rankings in terms of strengths across all areas, but it's a very small economy. And Switzerland had to learn to internationalize and develop innovation in a very, very small set of sectors to internationalize. So Swiss chocolate and Swiss pharmaceuticals, that's what they're famous for. And they have export success that shows that their innovation specializes. It's a smart specialization with innovation capabilities for those narrow areas of industry. We know about USA, bigger economy, broader set of industries. So everything from IT, we know Meta, we know Amazon, we know Microsoft, but also film industry and a range of other sectors that the US is very strong in, partly because it has a large domestic economy and there are parallels with China. But it has used that to develop export success, which is what China is doing. The UK is a medium-sized economy, but very international, very high exports, very high imports, creative industries, some film, some music, pharmaceuticals. So the first dimension is specialization. And China is big enough, like the US, that it actually has managed innovation across a very broad sector. Some are leading, some are taking time. If you look in some areas of Chinese economy, it's not yet developed those leadership innovation, and it will do. But if we look at the second area, this is about specialization. The second issue is to do with what we call upstream science and technology inputs and downstream commercialization, the development of applied technology. Now, the UK is actually more focused on upstream. It has great science and technology, great universities, Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial. It leads in some of these areas. It's actually not very good at commercializing those technologies. So the chip manufacturer, ARM, and very recently, a number of other chip manufacturers who were invented and started up in the UK have been bought out by SoftBank or other foreign companies. The Americans buy up UK science and technology. So we're very strong upstream, not so good downstream. The USA is good in both. It has excellent universities, but it's pretty good at commercializing. And I think China's evolving that same mix of good upstream and good downstream. But lastly, evidence of upstream and downstream lies in clusters. So there are hotspots within countries. And what we've seen, the US has long had San Francisco, San Jose, the IT cluster in Silicon Glen, Silicon Valley. The UK has Cambridge and a number of other clusters. Europe has clusters. But what we've seen in the last 10 years in particular is the growth of clusters, including Hangzhou, Zhejiang, but also in Shanghai, in Beijing and Shenzhen that have scale, but they're beginning to connect upstream science and technology in universities with very applied technologies and commercialization. They produce new knowledge through the science and technology investment, and they produce skilled graduates who go into big companies and create new innovations and product and process development, but also they go into startups. Students make great entrepreneurs and they start up new types of businesses with new business models. So many of the innovation clusters around the world have grown up around great universities. In Hangzhou, with Zhejiang University at the absolute centers, the dominant university is no different. This university has created some excellent entrepreneurs. You know many of them, you've followed many of them are your friends and you've studied them. So can you tell me a bit about Chinese universities and their role in stimulating innovation in China?
Yes, I think I learned a lot from your talk. We see that the upstream and the downstream is very important for innovations going on. The upstream has the engine generating not just the knowledge, but of the new technologies. But for the downstream, with the commercialization is very important. And China is such a big country. We see we have the advantages in the bigger market. In the downstream, we see we have the advantages for us, the commercialization. But anyway, we see, as I mentioned, when I was the university students, so small amount of university students. So during that time, actually the Chinese university, their main task is to acquire technology, introduce the knowledges to China. So we see that their work is to transfer the technology and the knowledges from outside in at the first stage. But then now we could see that big changes happen in Chinese universities. So as I mentioned, every year we have the graduates over 10 million. Yeah, but not just the volume of those talents, but also for the advanced studies. Yeah, such as in Zhejiang University, we have the very advanced studies in biotechnology, computer science, so many areas, materials, so many areas. Zhejiang University is the most comprehensive discipline university in China. We cover all the disciplines. So we have the advantages. We see the interdisciplinary researchers. And also we see that the innovation, entrepreneurship education in Zhejiang University is very early. They are the leader in China. So we see for the new time, we call that's the new era, not just for China, maybe for the whole world. We see we are getting to the fourth industrial revolution time. So we see the big data, IoT, the AI, all those things emerging, going on. So we see that's a big window opportunity, not just for the leading country, but also for the latecomer countries. But in this transfer, so we see the university play the leading roles in it. And Zhejiang University, we have the invention patents leadership in the country. We are number one for over 10 years. But anyway, for the commercializations, we need to changing our, maybe we see the education paradigms. So not just study those series by series. We could see what's the relation to the industries. We see the relevant to the industries. So we see the entrepreneurship education also very important for the university students. So the role of the universities in China is changing dramatically. So there's so many amazing things going on in China.
It's a new era. No, it's an era of tremendous change. There are classically lots of threats and lots of opportunities. I mean, just to start with some challenges, the geopolitics globally is high risk at the moment. And this is creating challenges both for national governments and it's creating challenges for firms, particularly multinational firms. Now, the global innovation system is very dependent on global trade and interaction between universities across the world with each other, but also between firms and other universities. It's a complex network of knowledge and technology development, and geopolitical protectionism, closing trade barriers, stopping exports, preventing foreign direct investment. That threatens the global economy everywhere. Everyone would lose if that carries on. But secondly, it can damage the global innovation system. What it will push, though, is a reconfiguration. People talk about decoupling. There will be recoupling. And what is emerging at the moment is a very strong Asian sub-network, with China leading a number of Asian countries in terms of an innovation paradigm shift. And that is following trade and foreign direct investment. Now, I have a lot of faith that the global economy will reconnect and grow, and the political threats will disappear over time because it's in everyone's interest. But at the same time, there will be a changing ranking, a changing order in the leaders. And in a sense, I think there are a number of opportunities for this geographical reconfiguration. First and foremost, I mean, there are so many different changes in technologies and business models, but first and foremost, the shift to online digital services is tremendously important. And that brings in AI, data analytics, but new business models that are not around, as we know, physical products, but much more around services and online services. Now, China has huge, innate, natural competitive advantages here because of the cycles that you have studied, because of these agility of these firms to move to next paradigm shifts, but also because of the way that Chinese people and companies use technology and use online services, there is a huge advantage, and there will be some leapfrogging. And we see this in the numbers. So at the moment, the US has about 15% of a growing, very rapidly growing market in particularly online digital services of a particular kind that's going to grow into the trillions. The UK is actually quite a strong player, around 8%. And at the moment, China has 4%. But the rate of growth in Chinese exports in these services exports, and the rate of growth of networks where the Chinese firms are getting involved in this is phenomenal. And the agility of Chinese firms will enable them to grab these opportunities in this new area of digital online innovation services. So I have a lot of optimism around the future of the global system, but also around Chinese firms' position in that global system. Tell me about your views as an expert on innovation in Chinese firms. I mean, how are these changes affecting China and Chinese firms, and what are the opportunities for Chinese firms in this new global era?
Actually, China now is facing big challenges also. But anyway, we could see even more opportunities. Opportunities, as you mentioned, the reglobalization or reconfiguration of the globalization. So we say that the globalization surely is a very important issue. Give the chances to China. China learn a lot. China gain a lot. But anyway, the innovative rising of China, in my view, two aspects relating with the future could be very impressively should be mentioned. The first is that we go through the big cycle change. So, such as we are from the second industrialization time. Now we have the chance to go through the fourth industrial revolution time. So we see how the Internet of Things, how the big data, how the AI can help these countries, more companies, more people to access to the frontiers, to receive the leapfrogging or something like this. So that's the big chance for China. So China's innovation will keep on going for this direction. So that's surely very important. And it's related, another issue is so-called inclusiveness. So we see the inclusiveness is so important. In China has the huge populations, but we see the economic development is not so well balanced. We could see the advanced areas, but we see the developing areas. There are big gap in that. So the technological innovations, how to make those development more inclusively. So that's the key issue. So give more chances for more people. So that's the key challenges for it. Also the opportunities for China. And for the globalization, we see that the Belt and the Road areas, we say provide big potentials for China. Not just gain the market, but also we collaborating with the local companies, peoples in abroad. So we could see the inclusiveness, not just in China. So we see the inclusive development may be extended to the globally, so especially for the Belt and the Road areas, the developing countries. So we see the South-South collaboration and North-South collaboration could be the bigger chances for the welfare of the whole world.
Good.
So another issue I would like to mention that we see the ecosystems, especially for the green future of the world. So we see that's the global consensus for it. So we see the zero carbon emission. China promised, we say the 30-60. In the year of the 2030, we will balance it. And in the year of the 2060, China will have the zero carbon emission. That's the big task and also the big chances, but not just for China. So we say the innovation collaborations will going on and even more boundary more extensively with other countries. So even though current geopolitical issues are impacting those things going on, but anyway, for the future, I'm optimistic.
So we've worked together a long time, but now I am a full professor here. I'm resident in Hangzhou. I'm loving it. I'm enjoying being at ZJU in the School of Management. And we have, I think, fantastic plans. We're going to collaborate together to build more international partnerships, to really look into in-depth research about exactly what is it that is different, new about the Chinese innovation, its business models, and how it compares to other countries. But also use that insight, I think, to help both Chinese policymakers and Chinese firms, but actually also help other countries, particularly the developing countries, and those interested to move into the green economy and sustainability, help them understand how China is innovating so successfully in these areas. So for me, I'm so looking forward to that journey, and it will be more intense, but there are so many questions, and working with you and your team, I'm really looking forward to that future. So it's a pleasure. It's a real pleasure talking to you.
More than a pleasure to me.
And I look forward to more conversations.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.